Well, to quote Queen, the band, another one bites the dust. Another coach has been fired in college football. LSU informs Brian Kelly that, yes, we do have enough money to pay your buyout, and they are firing him. This is his fourth season with LSU, and apparently they have the money to fire him. But after that blowout loss to Texas A&M last night, they said no more. They said no more. Now, I'm going to go ahead and tell you this. On the thumbnail, if you look, I did not put a picture on the thumbnail of Brian Kelly with him like looking grimacing. Like, oh no, I'm miserable. The look that most of us would have if we found out we were losing our job. The reason why is because he's going to make a ton of money losing his job, unlike other people. And I know there's coaches out there who's made statements like this, like, well, coaching, the people didn't get into it to make a lot of money. Well, these guys have been making a lot of money and making a lot of money for a very, very long time. And I have no problem with that as long as they're producing. Now, here's the thing with Brian Kelly. His record at LSU is not bad at all. It's just they were expecting him to take them over the edge. They were expecting him to make them a true, consistently true national championship contender, and it just wasn't happening. Last night they gathered loss number 3, and let me tell you this: Texas A&M looked like a big-time college football team playing a group of 5 football team. And if you step back and you look at that and you're honest with yourself, here's the truth. The truth is that when all of this money is being shelled out to coaches, donors are expecting a return on their investment. And if you don't get that, you don't understand business. Whether it is actually fair or whether it's logical that a school would fire someone in their 4th season and drop $60 million. Now, I read something, I don't know all of the ins and outs of this, so I'm just going to say if they agreed on something else, another amount. I don't know all the details of his contract. I know when James Franklin was fired, additional details about his contract was actually laid out before everyone about a week or so after it all went down. So I don't know all the details, but let's just say this. They're telling Brian Kelly, we are more than happy to pay whatever we have to pay to send you on your way, and we are going after our next football coach. There you go. That's it. Now, here's what I'm going to tell you. I don't have ill feelings towards Brian Kelly. I don't. Brian Kelly has won a lot. I never saw him as an LSU hire. I never saw him as an outsider looking in. I was sitting there when I heard Brian Kelly had left Notre Dame, where he had been forever, after he left Cincinnati, and he ended up at LSU. I said, this is not going to end well. This does not make sense. I don't know what they're doing down there. And I'm going to tell you what I heard from certain LSU fans. This guy didn't have the athletes at Notre Dame, but he's going to have the athletes now. And we are going to, and I went, nope, don't buy it. This is not a good fit. This is not a good match. And here you are sitting in season number 4, a little over the middle of the season, and you fire him. Harold Perkins may possibly be hitting the transfer portal. Now, according to whoever is named as the head coach, Harold Perkins may stay. But I'm telling you right now that these administrations at all of these schools need to be held accountable. And I'm going to tell you who can hold them accountable. I can't hold them accountable. I can get on here and tell you what the problem is. And I can tell you that what needs to be done. And I'm going to get to that in just a second. I'm not just here to point out problems. I'm here to offer you a solution. It'll be ignored by most. Good luck on losing. And I know that sounds arrogant. I don't mean that arrogant. I'm just saying I have watched how certain programs have responded to doing the right thing. They flip their middle finger at it, pop off a few nice, arrogant profanities at the advice, and then 5 years later, they quietly have to fire someone. And it's not quiet. Everyone knows what's going on. And they never admit that they were wrong. And most of them are unqualified to be able to hire a football coach. So here's the deal. I don't blame Brian Kelly for taking this job. I don't. Someone was willing to give him an unbelievable amount of money to go coach LSU, to leave Notre Dame somewhere where he had a lot of success. But here was the key about Brian Kelly. This guy is not a loser, but he is not a winner of big football games. And when you are at a school for a very, very long time and you can't win the big football games, why in creation do you believe that he's going to come to your school and all of a sudden go into one of the toughest conferences given the year? He's going to go into one of the toughest conferences in all of college football and win. Win probably 3 to 6 ball games, according to your schedule, according to the strength of the SEC, whether it's bloated or not. 3 to 6 ball games per year is going to be a top 10 national championship deciding football game, major college football implications, and he struggles in the big game. That is statistically correct. James Franklin, everybody's, losing their mind. There's people that was losing their mind over James Franklin getting fired. He was 4-21 against the top 10 at Penn State. They gave him more than enough time. More than enough time. And he is not a bad football coach. James Franklin is not a bad football coach. But at Penn State, he proved 100% he is not going to win the big game. You will be a top 12 football team with him. And so many schools out there would wet their drawers. You'd have to throw the chair out they're sitting in. They'd pee their pants to be able to be a top 12 football team, but not at Penn State. You know why? Penn State is historically a really good football team. Yes, it's been 40 plus years since they won a national championship. But they still see themselves as one of the forces in major college football. So they don't want to win just 10 wins every year and be able to be in consideration for the national championship. They're like, we're Penn State. We have self-respect. We want to win. And you just lost 3 games in a row, and they fired him. LSU was there. Here's the asterisk beside all of this. The asterisk beside all of this is that you just can't go out and hire anyone. Let me rephrase this. You can do whatever you want to. I'll never forget the first time. I mean, it's when I was younger, saying you can't do that. And someone looked and said, "I can do whatever I want to." They were, in their 40s, had gray hair, and they sounded like a teenager. Their life's a wreck. I don't know how many people I've met like that. They think they're special. I mean, they're acting like, what? Yeah, I know what to do. Yeah, your life's a wreck. And I'm not being judgmental here. It's one thing to have your life be a wreck and you go, man, I've made some bad decisions. I need to change. And then someone doubling down, that's just stubborn. That's arrogant. And you're full of crap. You're just a reckless human being. I've met so many of those individuals, and every one of them are very headstrong. They're very headstrong at being reckless. So if you're in that community, I can't conversate with you. But if you're someone who may be headstrong, but you're logical, we can talk. We can have a conversation. We may not agree on everything, but we can have a conversation. And here it is. You can't do whatever you want to if you want a specific results. There's a specific path. There is a specific discipline or disciplines that you have to go about. If LSU, and they fired Brian Kelly. If they fire Brian Kelly and they think they can go out on the street and hire anyone to coach LSU because they have a passionate fan base and they have a bunch of talented players, you know what that tells me? That tells me they've learned nothing. That tells me that they are operating on the same mindset that made them fire Ed Orgeron 2 years after he won a national championship and went and hired a man who has made a lot of money coaching a game. And I'm not knocking him, but I am saying by history, looking at history, Brian Kelly could not win the big ball games. I didn't make that up. I'm reading. So if you're going to go fire him, but you don't have some brilliant hire that you're going to go out and make, it's going to be more of the same. Now, I'm not an LSU Tiger, and quite frankly, I could care less who they hire. I could care less who Florida hires. I could care less who Penn State hires. Oklahoma State. There are so many jobs open right now, it's a joke. Tallahassee, Florida can't fire their coach. They're dying to. But someone made the grand decision 2 years ago to give one of these outlandish extensions with a massive buyout that handicaps them. One of the first things you learn in business, like with brilliant people, is to be profitable. Like once everything is paid, to be profitable. And don't give up your leverage. These schools give up their leverage all the time. And because they're schools and because they're institutes of so-called higher learning and because they have a bunch of money pouring out of them like vomit out of an infant after drinking a bottle, you burp them and they vomit on your shirt and ruin everything. You're shocked, but let's. I got a text and I wanted to read it. I admit it. You can't hire anyone. All right, I'm going to cut the antics. You can't just hire anyone if you want success. And giving away all this leverage is not smart. And it's someone somewhere, and it may take 20 years for it to happen. Someone's going to hit their head hard enough to grow a brain and stop doing it. Guys, we're giving away all of this money. We're draining our donors dry. What are we doing? Why did we do this? Well, everyone else was doing it. This is ridiculous. I mean, this is ridiculous. You have Florida open. You have Penn State open. You have LSU open. You have Oklahoma State open. Florida State wish they could have their job open. They can't. Now, I'm going to tell you this straight up, and I mean this with all of my heart. Hiring a good coach, let me rephrase that. Travis Hamrick, and I want to give him credit on this because he said this. There's a difference between hiring a qualified coach and the right person for the job. On paper, Brian Kelly was qualified. I'll have to hand it to LSU there. They didn't go out and hire some guy who was green behind the ears, who knew nothing, to run their football program. They did go get a guy who had been in major college football for a while, made it to the national championship, made it to the college football playoff. I mean, he got throttled by Clemson 30-3 in the first round, but, you know, but it wasn't that he was unqualified. It was that he could not win the big game. And LSU, and I'm telling you from the comments I saw in my LSU versus Clemson game, yes, LSU beat Clemson. Wonderful. Clemson's terrible, blah, 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 blah. Here's the thing. Whatever's happening in Clemson, South Carolina, it's fun to trash talk. What's happening in Baton Rouge? Oh, it's so bad they had to fire your coach. And one of your best players, if not your best player, is going, I may transfer. That's how good it is in Baton Rouge tonight. So while it's a good jab to me, and that's totally fine, yeah, your team looks bad. We're both miserable. They hired someone that was qualified. They didn't hire the right person for the job. And I knew that as an outsider looking in. What is the next steps for LSU? They better have someone good. Now, I'll tell you this. Lane Kiffin is almost a lock for the Florida job. But my question is, if LSU comes to him and says, you're not going to have to rebuild us near as much as you have, as much as you're going to have to rebuild Florida, does Lane Kiffin take the job at LSU? It's a good question. Look what he's done with Ole Miss. Ole Miss. They've had a few bright spots in history. They've had a few historical players here and there. If you're an Ole Miss fan and you're watching this, your blood's starting to boil, and you're like, that guy doesn't know what he's talking about. We can just look. If you'd like for me to, I can pull up the history of Ole Miss football. It's not great. What Lane Kiffin has done has been consistently incredible. Can you imagine what he'll do at LSU or Florida? Lane's this, Lane's that. You got to watch Lane. Sure, I call him the Bill Clinton of college football, and he's very entertaining to me. The man can coach. For anyone who has to play that man, God forbid he gets LSU or Florida. Can you imagine what he could do with them? As long as he keeps his nose clean and he brings in a really solid staff, he'll be a nightmare. Lane Kiffin makes more sense for LSU than Brian Kelly made it, being the head coach there. There you go. LSU's got a lot of soul searching to do. And they're going to have to bring in the right man, not just the qualified man, the right man for the job. And if they don't, you'll be firing a coach in 4 or 5 years. Maybe he gets you to a deep run in the college football playoff, and that buys him 7 years. And then you realize he's not the right man. It's very hard to hire coaches, but then again, not everyone is paid $10 to $12 million per year. So not everybody deserves that. We've made it a commonality that you pay coaches this outrageous amount of money. It's not common, folks. Do you make $10 million a year to coach a game? No, you don't. I don't. That's why the pool has to be much smaller. The money's got outrageous. Now that we're just colleges are slinging money around with absolutely no restraint and no qualifications for the coach, no whatever. It's just go get that coach. We heard he's good. Oh, just back a Brinks truck up to his house and let him and mama go in there and get as much as they want. It's not smart. A lot of schools, hopefully this is going to correct the market. If it doesn't, I beg the donors, shut your checkbooks. I know that's the old-fashioned way of saying don't give them any more money. People don't use checks anymore except for the elderly. But I am telling you, shut your checkbooks. You can correct it then. Brian Kelly is going to go away. He was already a rich man. He's going to go away a very rich man. I expect him to land on his feet whenever his contract allows. My guy, he's not even on his feet. He's riding on a cloud right now. He's made so much money. And yes, that does matter, because if for anyone out there who's wanting to go, well, you got to understand, it goes beyond the money. It goes into the competitor and this, that, and the other. Go sit and talk to a person who works a regular job, even if they have a good job, who lost their money and barely any severance. Yeah, it's way different. So I don't want to hear that argument. That's a lazy man's argument. I don't even know why you're arguing unless you're, kin to them. And you're just trying to do the whole thing where you're taking up for, maybe you're a former coach and you just feel a little itch in your butt that you need to scratch by arguing with me. But this man is outrageously successful with money, and he just became even richer quicker. So anyway, this will be interesting. I hope hopefully the market will pull it together and people will grab a it's going to be massive. It's going to be massive. Get in here, look at a couple of comments. Gig'em Aggies, where does he go after this? I don't know. He doesn't have to. He doesn't have to go anywhere. Don't be surprised if he does return to like the upper Midwest. He was successful. He was successful there. Retirement. Yeah, retirement. I bet UF is sick on their stomachs. Maybe so. Maybe LSU can poach Lane. Kaysen and Chloe, hey, buddy. A CBS Sports article says Lane Kiffin is biggest target for LSU, but what does that mean for Florida? It also says in the article Dabo as a target. I don't see it. Yeah, I don't see that either, but I may do a video on that. It's a really good idea. Thank you. Thank you. Your uncle loves you for that. I'm always looking for content, and you just gave it to me. Virtual high five, son. Roger Parks, one of my buddies, longtime supporter. These days, you don't have to be a good coach to get rich. Whoo! That is fire, son. Wow. You are 100% right. All right, folks. Let me know in the comments section who takes over for LSU and why. Why? Yep.